I'm hoping they don't make it like, oh, it's live action, so it has to be like really dark and gritty. You know, it starts with like a direct murder or something. Good to see they're keeping with the fun light theme. So I think maybe we should preface this with how much we know about the original series and what we're going into.
Yes. So how many times, by way of kicking that off, would you say that you have watched the animated original Avatar: The Last Airbender? Soup to nuts.
I've never heard that expression before.
A to Z, full watch.
I'd say I've probably watched it with you guys like twice after the initial watch, and then I've watched like reactors react to the whole thing. So I've probably seen it like 4 or 5 times-ish.
Yeah, I think you put in a couple laps without me.
Mm.
I've probably seen the whole thing twice.
First of all, I'm surprised that we were so early to the train. Because it couldn't have been before, it couldn't have been after it aired, and it wouldn't have been after, like, 2008, because we were still in our initial house.
Yes.
So we've got to have caught it, like, really early.
I think we may have talked about this before, and I seem to recall us arriving at some conclusion like one season was already out, or maybe 2 seasons. So I think there was 1 season out already.
Yeah, it said release February 21st, 2005 was its initial release.
Yeah.
And the last episode was July 19th, 2008. So it was probably mid-season, because I remember we were huddled over the computer at our dinner table waiting for the newest episode to release.
Yes.
On your old work laptop.
Yes. So I think, not the laptop I ran over, but the one after that. I think it was 2006 or 7 that we started watching.
And that sounds about right. So we get to be pretentious and feel superior that we were early to the phenomenon.
We can't make we were in from the beginning claim, but right up there, right next to it.
Before it stopped airing, what did one of the actresses say?
Are you talking about the woman who plays Katara saying that I don't know.
Yeah, we saw that interview and she was like, obviously I wasn't alive when it first came out or something like that. And I was like, that's not right.
See, now, Anna, you get a taste of how I feel all the time as a 54-year-old person.
I think I've been mentally in my 40s since I've been 14.
Yeah, the candy that you carry around in your purse and the chopsticks are kind of a giveaway.
Yeah, it doesn't help to have a bunch of butterscotch.
Having adult conversations from a very early age. Not understanding.
Precocious.
Yeah.
So what was your experience first watching it?
Well, I went in with the spirit of fun, I think, and interest, because it was something you were interested in. And then when I saw it was martial artsy, I of course was interested because of that background. And I'm just a huge sucker for a good story. So between those 3 things, I think I was probably all in very early on, taken by the story. I loved the humor. I loved the zaniness of the characters. I loved the hero's journey aspect. And then I was also intrigued at the time because, being at Naropa and having the background that I do, I was interested in reincarnation. So I loved the idea of the Avatar as basically an incarnate Buddhist monk, reincarnated Buddhist monk in training. but I secretly sometimes rooted for the Fire Nation.
That's because you've got a compulsive
Football,
need to root
dominate the
for the bad
world.
guys.
Yep. Yeah. How about you?
Obviously, I was young, but honestly, I really expected watching it. Like, you watch things you liked when you were young, and then you're like, "Yeesh," or like, I don't see what the appeal was. And I was like, "It's possible that this could happen," and then, like, it's a show I loved as a kid, and it's, like, greatly rewarding that it was actually well written and written for everyone, so that watching it as an adult, I was like, "No, this is still really, really cool." Like, one of the best written shows.
Yeah, I think what resulted from the movie being produced, I mean, a lot of people have complained about it, and I get it, but there is a transition from animation to live action, and it just revealed how badly that can go. And what some of the things you have to watch out for when you do an adaptation, like how that plays out. And so I'm really excited about the prospects of a serial show, live action, handling those issues in a way that's adds value that live action adds and honors the original ethos of the story.
Yeah, well, I hope they retain the fun without getting too bogged down by wanting to be mature.
See, there you said it like in one sentence what I said in 30. Yeah. So it's kind of good that the M. Nightmare Shyamalan thing happened because uh who knows if they would have learned.
Yeah, they've got no matter what they make, first of all, it will not be the worst Avatar, the the last, yes.
So I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic, I guess.
Yes, I will say I am cautiously, very cautiously optimistic. Because there are a lot of things that go into, like, even if they get, the perfect writers and the perfect acting, um, is the CG too weird or rubbery or, like, how much should they rely on CG where they're like, "Oh, they're not actually in a boat," so then that has, like, your weird ripple effects.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'm drawing too on two recent videos that we have watched that have a bearing on this viewing. The one is the one that we watched yesterday about CG and why they use it so rampantly, so frequently, um, pervasively in modern film, even though it's hard to make it qualitatively as good as a straight shot, an actual set.
And I think a lot of the problems of things being too CG nowadays is also just that in order to make a good story, the people behind it kinda have to be passionate about the thing, and you have to have a team who's at least, like, interested. So I feel like a lot of that's the difference between The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit series, of movies, is it's the same everything, same director, same people, all that, but the second time it was just, "Okay, make magic again. Do the same thing that people will still just eat." Where they had, like, the difference between Ian McKellen being like, "Oh, these little sets are so tiny," and then, like, accidentally really bumping his head, versus, like, breaking down on the infamously breaking down on the set of The Hobbit and being like, "I'm sitting in a blue void, like, this is so sad."
The second thing that I'm drawing from in recent experience and recent video watching together is what's going on with Percy Jackson. Now,
Which we were also in theaters for the terrible movie adaptation of.
yes, exactly, precisely. And it's different now that it comes from a book initially than from an animated series. But what I was really thinking about with regard to Percy Jackson is just how they handle the plot. How do they cut up a complex plot that spans several books and a whole host of characters, and how do they uh, crunch it down into bite-sized pieces that are actually satisfying?
I've realized I think that's what my main distilled problem with the new series is that they hit all the story beats, but without the things that make those story beats important. So it's all
Why?
just like everything is there, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not combined or timed, maybe is a better word,
Hmm,
in such a way that it feels fulfilling to someone who has read the books.
yes. And I think that's also the difficulty of different adaptation of media.
Well done, Anna.
Yes, I've successfully learned the difference between adaptation and adaptation. And now I can bother everyone I know about it when I get it wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So
but like just having, the reader goes at their own pace and you like sit and you live with the book. Whereas like whatever is shown to you is shown to you and there's nothing else.
yeah, it's really clear. I'm not I'm not dinging the Percy Jackson series here. It's probably still too early to tell, though we were both somewhat unsatisfied in this way with the first episode. But it's not enough, as you said, to have like all the key plot points in your soup. It doesn't make it a good soup. So there's something about that spark. Do you connect with the characters? And I think the kid who plays Percy Jackson is doing a good job.
I think all the actors are excellent. I just think
Yeah.
the writing, they don't get to fully express. I think that's what makes it frustrating is that it's not a bad series. It just could be like awesome because they have all the elements and then it just isn't.
Mhm. Not yet, and maybe that won't change. But I'm not quite giving up on it yet.
But perhaps Avatar: The Last Airbender can master all four elements and create a good show.
Yes, that brings me back to cautiously optimistic. There's so much that goes into it. I don't envy the editors and technical staff and actors and actresses and directors. It can't be an easy thing to do. The question of should it be done is a whole other issue. I'm not so like old school that I just think, oh, it has to be a book. I consume this stuff. Sometimes I even feel like wantonly consume this stuff, not being especially critical of it, because one of the reasons I go to movies or watch Netflix originals and the like is just like everybody else, a kind of escape, pure entertainment. But so this is going to be a bit of a challenge for me because there's one part of the brain that just wants to laugh and enjoy whatever comes up, and there's the other part that's like, okay, I want this to be excellent, and honor the animation, even though, I mean, what's it to me really, ultimately?
I think it's weird feeling like I think it hit that perfect the original series hit that perfect blend for me of age, nostalgia, and like company. So I'm like, this is the show we watched together. This is the show I watched and was really liked when I was younger that's influenced like my taste in media.
Right?
Um I think ultimately what a lot of online discourse is going to forget is that the original series does still exist, and this isn't like erasing it.
It's a good point.
So if it is a letdown, then the original series does still exist. We can watch that anytime.
You have a fallback. Yeah.
But I will be very interested to see what additional meaning can be imbued with live action actors and accurate cultural influence, as accurate as you can be in a
Fantasy
fantasy
world.
fiction.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a line that's an interesting setup too. Is how can it be culturally appropriate?
Could definitely
culturally
be a lot
wise.
more, like, accurately culturally inspired, I think is what I'd be interested to see. Where someone is like, "Oh, yeah, like, my parents made that food for me," and you can see the influence, or, like, cultural architecture, or I think also with the consideration of live action, um, practicality for objects. Since you're not on an animation budget, you can have random background details, or, like, cool the caffeine from this tea is starting to hit. I'm like, "Ugh." But, like, more of an, like, eclectic, lived-in vibe for a lot of places, I think will be
Mhm.
interesting to see.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
wondering how, like I'm hoping they retain the element of fun in the
pivot.
overall show. I'm hoping they don't make it like, "Oh, it's live action, so it has to be, like, really dark and gritty," it starts with, like, a direct murder or something.
Yeah, that'll be in part, I think, a function too of that particular, any particular actor's ability. I think of the character of Sokka in particular. I I could have this totally wrong. I think it'd be, in this sense, easier to play Aang
Hmm.
because of his, he's younger and his diminutive nature is, everybody knows about the playfulness of Aang.
I think it'd be easier to keep in the, um, sarcastic kind of fun of Sokka because it's more realistic to how people are. Like, there's a lot of the humor of the original Avatar: The Last Airbender is, like, weird anime cutaways where their face is super big and their expression changes, or they shoot up into the air or something, trip over a rock and die, and then are fine later.
Yeah,
So we'll have to see. I'm hoping that there isn't just like, I don't know, it'll be hard to adapt. I'm interested to see how they'll do it. Rewatching it on my own, I was really surprised. Like, even the reactors I was watching were also especially surprised. They were like, "We thought this was just like a Nickelodeon's kids show," and then they watch it and they're like, "This was on Nickelodeon?" It'd be like, it doesn't have like the major swearing, but it has the like nothing super dark is on screen, but every implication behind it is like, "Oh my god."
genocide.
Yeah, it's a really tough and awful topic, and one that's always relevant, but particularly relevant at the moment. And
Yeah,
so I'm hoping they're I'm not sure what I'm hoping. I'm hoping they go into it with more of a, like, realistic, not realistic, but, like, focus, I guess, more on the, like, connections between people, and kind of learning to live with, be at peace with, and be happy in the times in which you exist, even if they are troubled.
mhm. I think will be interesting to see in this live action context. Um, some of the other videos we've watched about the Last Airbender live action series, and the speculation they've made about how diversity, you know, and inclusion, how that will play out in this, because there are obviously lots of tensions in the original. Um, ageism, sexism of all kinds. So along with humor, I almost want to say, like, the tension of the story is this innocence and coming of age within this really dark societal
Mm.
context. Can they will they track well that the journey of the characters from innocence to a more aware and empowered
Mm.
state as all these forces are weighing against them, you know?
I'm hoping that this one isn't going to be like, the original was for kids and about accepting, love and adversity and all that. I'm hoping they're not gonna be like, "But this time, we have him murder people." It's like he murders the Fire Lord, and that's the answer, direct action. I'm hoping that isn't like their modern take, that everything has to be like super gritty or something.
I would be really surprised if they deviated on some major point like that. I think that would net them a major thumbs down from their audience.
Yeah, probably. I also wonder how they'll handle, because like a lot of fighting in the original series, you know that the people they fight are not dead or injured for life because it's a kid's show, and that would be way on their moral conscience as characters. So they're definitely fine, but I wonder how well that'll translate in live action when you've got a real person who's like being slammed into a wall with a rock and just expected to be like, yeah, they're probably fine.
Yeah, that's a good
Normal
point.
bleeding, crushed lungs, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
They're forever.
that always crossed my mind, particularly when it came to firebending. I mean, this is burning people.
Yeah.
There's no real way to have them be okay after they get hit by firebending. Look at Zuko's face, for example. You know? Well, it should be fun. I'm excited for it. Shall we dive in?
Yes. That reminds me of the partnership with Nickelodeon. Don't worry, we consulted the original people.
We got the Fire Nation anthem down.
Picking possums. Nope, they are dead. Question answered.
Airbender. We aren't the real target.
My sights are set higher. Much higher.
Why? Why are you doing this?
Because it is our time.
Good to see they're keeping with the fun light theme.
A masterful
Ending!
illusion.
Okay. Little thought.
Water.
So they started with why. The whole thing during the animated series, you never really understood why the Fire Nation attacked. Although you got the sense that it's just this, ruthless ambition to dominate the world.
And it didn't feel like that lack of knowledge detracted from the story at all. Actually, I think it kind of improved it because you start with a kid who's just as clueless to the state of the world as the audience. So it's a little...
Yeah, now you've got, I guess this Fire Nation guy is Ozai's father, right?
Presumably.
Yeah.
That's, who's the guy who was friends with Roku?
Yes. Right.
Which I also liked how they revealed that in the original shows. It's through the connection first as friends, and then be like, oh, even, this friendship has turned sour into something really evil.
Mhm.
So this one, they're like, nah, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Also, like, his generals aren't in on it? What do they think they're doing?
Yeah, I don't really necessarily have any problem with it yet, but I just think that's interesting that they started there.
I don't think it ruins it, but it's an interesting angle.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to see where it goes before I make judgment.
And our question about whether people die and how gruesome it is has, I agree, been satisfactorily answered.
They went a little bit harder with it this time, having a charred corpse fall to the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When one avatar dies, their spirit is reborn into a new body in an eternal cycle. Since the death of the last avatar, the new incarnation has yet to emerge. And so, Fire Lord Sozin, the ruthless leader of the Fire Nation, believes this is his moment to launch a merciless campaign to conquer the world. His first step is to eliminate the one person who could stand in his way. The next master of all four elements, an Airbender, who may not be ready for the responsibility of becoming the Avatar.
That was like a weird lending someone your homework and being like, use a thesaurus, but you didn't let me know you copied it.
I guess having it be spoken by an avatar.
But also kind of the fun of learning about the series is slowly learning those facts. It's like, that she's like, here's the deal. Anyway, bye.
Yeah, I feel like I've just been spoon-fed.
Also, do they just hang out up there? Like when one avatar dies, they're like, welcome to the brunch. We meet up on these steps. Where's the glider? You can just do that on his own?
There may come a day when you wish you'd spent more time with your teachers.
Foreshadowing.
Aang has always been a prodigy, the youngest airbender in history to receive the markings of a master. But he is only 12.
Are Comet Festivals always this much work?
Well, the last one was 100 years ago, and believe it or not, I'm actually not old enough to have seen that.
Could have fooled me.
All, but I wanted you to receive yours in the presence of Yang Chen, the last air nomad to be the Avatar. When she died, the next Avatar was born into the following nation in the eternal cycle. So after Yang Chen's death came Kuruk of the Water Tribes, then Kyoshi of the Earth Kingdom.
The Moroku and the Fire Nation.
Which means the next Avatar will once again be an airbender.
You're right. Just needs to go up where things always make more sense. At least for now. Yip yip!
First yip yip of the series.
So a little different spin here.
Yeah, he just leaves to clear his head.
Yeah.
Seems like they're gonna show the Fire Nation arriving from the bottom now.
Remember, no survivors.
I think they know that.
Brothers and sisters, we're under attack!
Could have been a little more concise with that. Perhaps just firebenders.
Come with me, quickly! That's it. Stay quiet. Right into the corner. Stay down.
on another night. But not when we have the power of the comet.
Wolf Cove. I guess that has a name now. Do they got wolves up there?
Interesting.
Actually, why is it called Wolf Cove? Everything is a blend of two
All right,
animals.
listen up. We've been manning the wall in 3-hour shifts, but it seems some of you can't be trusted to stay at your posts.
So I don't know. I don't necessarily feel great about that whole backstory having to be played out.
No. I think that distracts from the story considerably.
I liked that, at least as far as I recall, the animated series started abruptly from here.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder about the audience for this. Because the audience is not just people who've seen it before. They're obviously creating context for a younger generation who would be interested in the story, but who hasn't gone through watching the animated series. Am I wrong?
I found a lot more intrigue going back to watch the original. Starts off and you're like, who is this? Why are they here? And then she water bends and you're like, what? They can do that? Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
they're like, oh, who's this kid in the iceberg?
Yeah, you're in it with Sokka and sorry, her name is slipping my mind.
Katara.
Katara. You're in there with them. Like, what's happening here?
I found it gratuitous, I think.
Yeah.
To see a bunch of people burning and screaming. The frightened faces of children huddled in a corner while one brave teacher tries to defend them. That's definitely not reminiscent of anything anyone would have really gone through.
Yeah, I guess
Fun to see on screen.
Points to them for, in a way, for just saying this is what genocide looks like and not making it too horribly gory, but everybody's wrapped in flames. You don't really see them burning alive, but the implication is obviously that all those kids huddled in the corner get
They're for sure
murdered as
dead,
well.
yeah.
And you could have gotten that implication without all the graphics. I agree.
I think the original series left it more up to interpretation. Like, Aang's whole thing is that his people were peaceful and would choose the peaceful way out no matter what. And then he thinks that, oh, when I have to, eventually kill the Fire Lord, that's, the last remnant of connection I had to my people who would want me to be this thing. But in this, they're just totally willing to fight. So I think the ambiguity of what really happened and not showing it directly was a more powerful storytelling device.
Yeah. So it looks to me like they concluded that giving the backstory, spoon feeding it basically, to people on the front end is necessary because their audience is not the original audience for the show.
Also, why was the Fire Lord there personally? I feel like I don't remember too many, much of a real-world historical precedent for the king just charging into battle whenever, so that he can 1v1 his favorite enemy. I like that they referenced how Aang got his tattoos. That's neat.
Right.
They were like, he's special because he's got, mastery, and that's why he's got his tattoos. I'm like, oh, that's a neat world building detail. The rest of it, I think. I think I've spotted a penguin otter. Penguin otter.
Yeah, right behind him there in the on the rock or on the glacier.
Oh, there are two of them.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
three. I'm playing Spot the Penguin Otter.
Or there's another one on the right.
So where were you
Maybe.
before?
Oh no, that's a crevice.
You were waterbending again, weren't you? Good job.
I'm not doing this.
In the original, she caused this. This looks like a ride at Disneyland. Minus that.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. What are you doing?
You're not thinking of leaving him.
Katara, a strange glowy iceberg just exploded and left behind a mysterious little bald person. What part of that makes you think, great, let's bring him home?
Sokka, he's just a kid. We can't just leave him out here.
Did waterbending summon him? Why did that break him out of the iceberg? And where's Appa?
Have to go.
Where you think we'll find the Avatar?
Yes.
Because of the light.
You think I'm imagining things?
Would want you.
My father has banished me until I find the Avatar, and that's exactly what I'll do.
He is an airbender.
We just have the device whistle.
Have you seen Appa?
This will
My
have
sky
crucial
vessel?
butterfly effect ripples.
6 legs,
Change the whole thing.
horns, brown arrows, sky bison.
You say you went down in this storm?
Came upon us suddenly. The weather went crazy just after I left home. The Southern Air Temple. Where the air nomads live? Well, not all the air nomads, but most of them had just arrived for the Great Comet Festival.
The Great Comet Festival.
Gran?
Water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the 4 nations lived together in harmony. Then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all 4 elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. And so the Fire Nation marched and laid waste, plunging us into a time of darkness. Everyone in the village knows this story, but you don't, do you, young man? Just as you don't know that airbenders haven't been seen in generations, and that the Southern Air Temple was the first to fall, because you've been trapped in that ice this whole time.
Thanks for the depressing info dump, Gran.
He may seem like just a boy, but he's much more. He is the last airbender.
Of all the places you have to drag our asses to, he picks the coldest spot in the world. How come his omens never take us somewhere with hot springs, huh?
Is there something you want to say, Lieutenant Shi?
No, sir.
Let me make something clear. Our mission is vital to the future of the Fire Nation. And so we will find the Avatar. We will prove ourselves worthy. And we will see our homes and families again. Or we will die trying.
Are you okay?
100 years. All my friends, Everyone I know. They're all gone.
I'm sorry. Believe me, I know how hard it is to lose the people you love. When I was little, I didn't really understand the war until the night the Firebenders came.
You're wrong.
No one comes here. It's quiet and hidden.
You're a waterbender.
Barely. I'm trying to get better, but I'm the only waterbender left in the Southern Tribe. Sokka doesn't like it when I practice because he's worried that the Fire Nation will find out and...
And what?
There's a reason. I'm the only waterbender left in the village.
The aforementioned
If you
killing
don't,
she
the
just
others.
talked about seconds ago.
Sokka just doesn't understand. I don't understand. Why are they here? After all this time, what could they possibly want?
Him. He's more than the last Airbender, aren't you? You are the Avatar.
Aang?
Gran is so unnecessarily
I knew he
creepy
was
this
hiding
time
something.
around.
When the world needed the Avatar the most, he vanished. Because he's a coward. He ran and people died.
I am Prince Zuko, firstborn son of Fire Lord Ozai. We have no desire to take your homes. We merely seek someone who does not belong here. Someone who is not one of you.
Sokka, don't you see? He's the Avatar!
And he lied to us about it.
I know how hard this responsibility has been for you. But there's more to being a leader than just catching fish. You have to give people something to live for. That's what the Avatar is. He's hope.
I am Sokka, son of Hakoda, lord of, snow and ice. On behalf of the Water Tribe village of Wolf Cove, I demand that you leave immediately.
Leave him alone!
Where did he get his staff from?
There are many who never imagined this day would ever come, myself included.
Why did the Fire Nation start this war?
Some people say it is within our nature to expand and consume, like fire itself. Others believe that true stability in this world can only happen under our rule. So the drive to conquer is a drive for peace and unity.
But peace comes from respecting life, not killing and destroying.
A noble sentiment, Avatar. But in the end, for most of us, it doesn't matter how this war started. It only matters how it can end. And the belief is that by capturing you, the Fire Nation can finally bring that about. In the meantime, I'll have some jasmine tea sent to you. It's quite soothing.
It won't be easy to catch them.
I know. Hopefully we can find a swift current. Maybe draft off their wake.
Or we could go another way.
You're not serious. Katara, no. There's a no way you're getting me on that.
Oh, so they've got some humor going. That's pretty good.
The avatars.
It's almost like the guy who captured the avatar is kind of into avatars. Thinks they're kind of neat. Knows a bit about them. It made more sense if Zuko had already had the staff and then he was like, oh, this is mine now. But he just kind of summoned it from the ether?
Open fire! Now!
These open fire is really literal.
You know, the firebenders aren't gonna give up. They're gonna keep coming after you.
Which means we can't go home. It would put everyone in danger. So where do we go?
Let's know.
What's happening? What is he doing? So not to be rude, but what was that?
I don't know. There's so much I don't know. The monks are gone and I'm all alone.
You know, the thing about losing everything is that that's when you learn how strong you really are. It's when you learn to fight.
They made the ultimate sacrifice. For me. I need to make sure their deaths weren't in vain. I need to follow through on what they wanted me to do. Complete my training and master all the other bending skills so I can bring balance back to the world.
Oh, is that all?
This was my home. And now it's gone. I don't know where this will all lead. And I don't know if I have what it takes. But the one thing I do know is I'm the Avatar. And this is just the beginning.
Thoughts?
It seems like their motivations are not as realistic as the animated series. There's also a lot of I think I'm just sort of a fan of like subtlety in writing.
Yeah, there was a lot of early narration.
They narrated the intro sequence twice with two different elderly people who are like, what was that with Gran, where she was like, in the initial series, she was kind of like, be wary, I've seen the past, I'm being harsh, because, and then you find out, oh, it's because I love you, and here, let me help you, subversion of expectations, here's your sleeping bag, you can, you'll need it for your trip. But this time she's just spooky. She's just like the haunted doll in the corner who gives exposition. And then they just leave? I'm still
Yeah.
hung up on why it's called Wolf Cove. It's just a single wolf. It's not like half anything else. What does that mean? They're not thinking about the lore implications properly.
On balance, I would say thumbs up. Like, I think it seems to me they're honoring the story. I don't know, the whole thing brings me back to what's the benefit of live action, but because if it's just a money grab, even if there's passion in the story, um, that's one thing. If it's telling the story to a new generation while telling it to the old one who's already seen it, I could see that there'd be some cool value in passing on the story. But really, I don't see anything that makes me go, "Oh, I'm so glad they did this. They did live action."
It felt like they don't have quite enough of the past, and they don't have enough of the future. Like, there isn't, enough to be like, "Oh, this is a new direction with this story." And it isn't enough of, like, the same it felt like the intro, where, like, it's the same thing, but you change all the synonyms in the thesaurus. Like, I don't know about that.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm going with the live action thing. I think they've done a good job with the live action. It looks believable to me.
It looks good.
Yeah.
I think it may also suffer from everything else being great and the writing being off.
Although I'm not sure how I would change the writing if we're in their shoes.
I think I'd incorporate a little more of the mystery, like, subtlety element, because it just seems a little everyone just says what they mean very matter-of-factly, where instead of being like, I don't know, in my perception, people are more emotional about their own feelings in a way that prevents them from directly stating it.
Yeah, and the part I don't like about the writing is the overt narration from characters.
It's a lot of tell and rather than show.
Yeah.
Where it's just kind of strange to see characters be like, "Ah, the issue you are experiencing is that everyone you love is dead. That is sad." They're like, yes it is. I feel conflicted about this because I left when I was." You're like, "Oh, Also, the fact that Aang didn't care that everyone he'd ever known, like, he goes back and he's like, dead person, dead person, Gyatso! Instead of, like, I don't know, the way it is in the show is that he's got this hopeful optimism and, like, he's definitely aware that something bad has probably happened to everyone, but he's, like, kinda repressing that, and then it comes out in the truth, and he's like, he knows for sure that's someone who knew and they're dead. And then, like, Avatar state. But this was, like, kind of a strange he was like, "Ooh, yeesh."
I would like to kind of see a side by side of the script from the original series
Hmm.
and what it became here. I don't know. I don't have that level of memory of what was said in the original without having recently rewatched it.
I do have the benefit, or the downside, potentially, of having watched the show recently and being able to make a more direct comparison. I feel like with the tone of the show, I'm glad they didn't go this way, but with the tone of the show, it seemed like he was almost going to walk back into a room of children's corpses. There's a certain TV trope called fridge horror, which is like implications you don't really think about at the time, and then later you're like, "Oh no." This actually has like a deeper thing. So it's kind of been fridged, stored for later. I feel like they could make a more effective use of that in a show like this. I think in order to be realistic, it doesn't necessarily have to depict every horrifying element.
Hmm. Yeah. Which brings me back to the theme of compression of the script into a presumably smaller number of episodes. And
You'd
how do you,
think, but each original episode was limited to 20 minutes. And these are almost 50 minutes.
Mhm.
I feel like it would benefit from a more, I don't know, it's difficult because when you're rewriting a show like this, you don't want to just copy the initial show.
Right.
I think I might still watch it if they just copied the initial show and did it in live action. With some added flair from the runtime. But
So here again, what's the benefit of live action?
I think it's cool that they get to hire a diverse cast and they get to see themselves represented and other, I'm not sure if young kids are watching this, but anyone who hasn't felt represented in the past see people that look like them. I think that's nice.
Yeah.
That's a failing of the original is, I mean, visually it runs in kind of a cartoon anime style, so it isn't perfect realism, but they are voiced by non-Asian actors, voice actors most of the time in the original, but also I feel like that's something you can't retroactively fix about the original, and also isn't enough of a draw to make a series like this on its own compelling.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, if it were something in the Avatar universe that was live action like this, and not just a retelling of a story that's already been told very well, then I would think that was really cool.
I see your point.
But there's something that rings a bit hollow about this whole series.
So scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best retelling in live action possible, and 1 being an abysmal failure. Where are you sitting?
I'd give it a 5. It is. I'll suspend judgment until further episodes, I think. Establishing everything in, one episode is quite the task. So I feel like when people have more, maybe the writers, maybe the actors, things change as you progress and everyone gets more comfortable with their job. So I think there's potential for the creativity to expand.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm a little more sanguine. I give them a 7. I guess it depends on how you rate it too. Like within the understanding of what it is, that is live action, I'd say they're doing really well. But in comparison to the original story, they're doing better than other live action, perhaps, but it changes the rating for me to the 7. I think what I'm just finding is that, of course, the effects of live action are cool, and it does bring the retelling of the story into a different focus. But I'm not sure how much I really value that. At some level, I value it, but not highly.
I think they also spent a weird amount of time where they're like, we have extra time to flesh out the characters of our world. Here's random McNobody. He's an earthbender. It was like, what? They're like, this is to show how cruel the Fire Lord is, as opposed to the entire genocide he commits later, which is just sort of added for flavor. Like, I think we can already get that he's kind of a bad guy. Don't need to watch him burn one guy directly alive to prepare you for burning everyone else alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then if you add Uncle Eero's explanation, it seems even less necessary to have that intro.
Yeah, I felt like I got 6 different intros, 6 different ways for the same subject. I think it'd be cool if it were, seeing from different people's perspectives all over the world. Like, oh, here's how someone from the Fire Nation sees it, or this is contrasted with how the Southern Water Tribe sees it. That'd be more interesting, but it's just kind of like 3 different people who break down the events of what happened without the emotion of it.
Mm-hmm. It does definitely seem redundant to me.
It also seems like a lot of the potential for action has been cut. Like, the Katara and Sokka start floating downriver because of the stream that's bad, rather than direct waterbending action of them being in conflict with each other. And then the Avatar state senses bending nearby, and that's what frees him, I guess. And then Appa isn't melted out in the original, so I guess he just does that with his mind later. It feels a little like the direct causation or like action of the characters has been removed slightly. Like the reason the firebenders even find out that Aang is in the Southern Water Tribe is because he is foolish and trips a tripwire inside of the old boat. And in this one, they just kind of know. They're like, we saw a glowing light. There are people over there.
So how was Appa in the original? What happened with him?
Well, Appa was just there with Aang in the ice bubble and then awoke
Right.
at the same time that he did.
Okay.
In this one, Appa's kind of implied to still be in the ice when Aang escapes from only a pocket of air, and then presumably Appa digs himself out.
Either that or he's been flying around waiting near the area for 100 years.
They show like a bison silhouette inside of the ball.
Okay. All right.
But they also, when he's broken out, he's just alone there. He's not wrapped up in Appa or something. So he just like new lore drop. Appa's great at tunneling.
Yeah, so, and you'd think Aang, upon being awakening near Appa, well, I guess he doesn't, does he?
Oh, I guess not, yeah. But they also had like callbacks to the original script that also was not written as impactfully as it was. Like the initial line where Katara's like, well, he's just a kid. And then in the original Appa points out good old sarcastic Appa making great observations about hypocrisy. Sokka points out, he's like, you're a kid too, have you forgotten that? And she's like, oh, I guess I have, because I've had to be a mother to everyone for so long. They've just changed motivations for everyone. Subtly, but in a strange way. That I think I may just need some time to readjust to and be like, oh, that's the way they're going with the story.
Yeah, I might need to dive in and watch the original again for each episode that we watch. Do you want to break here? or keep on?
We should probably break, considering it's 7:33. And I've
Yeah,
got to be up
yeah.
at 2 for soap making tomorrow.
Oh. Well, gotcha.
But I also want to I'm like, oh, I'll have to wait till next week.
Saying that you've got to be up at 2 is
Very sad, yes.
I didn't say that.
Deeply pathetic.
Indicator of your late bedtime.
That's mostly in jest. I will be up by 11.
Uh-huh.